Stories are repeating history but perfecting it. My name is Osadumebi, and every week I will tell you a short story written by a Nigerian writer or author. That's the long and short of it. So without much ado, this week's story is by Charles Kadib, and it's titled The Meeting. She had never been able to explain why she feared meeting him. Why an overwhelming dread always crept up her spine and overtook every cell in her being at the distinct ping which heralded the receipt of his text message. The fear was even more inexplicable, given that these meetings always proceeded the same way. Every month, every year, the routine was the same. She would hear her phone beep with the unique sound she had assigned to him. She would pick up her phone with quivering hands to read the same curt message he sent every month, every year. It always summoned her to his home at the waterside. His decrepit home, made from rotten wood with washed-out paint and a foundation consisting solely of shaky poles dug deep into the black, brackish swamp. Just near his home was a stream, clogged to the brim with refuse and sewage, dangerously infested with mosquitoes and other unimaginable diseases, hopelessly polluted. A dying body of water so putrid that even the mud skippers, periwinkles, and crabs you would expect to find wallowing in the dark mud of such habitat had long fled in repulsion for saner niches. Only Amadi seemed at home in the squalor, at one with the grime and dilapidation, unwilling or incapable of leaving despite the millions he had squeezed from her over the years. Moving from her part of the city to the waterside was like moving through different planets. Her mansion at Golden Heights beamed with an elegance which rivaled urban planning found only in the most developed nations. The waterside stood in shocking contrast. A series of wooden buildings heaped haphazardly against each other, teetering on the brink of collapse and situated above the rubbish heap and mosquito breeding sites the locals like to call a river. There wasn't even a single electric pole in sight, and the only way to it was a rugged path which jarred her bones as her driver bounced erratically over it, struggling in vain to avoid the numerous potholes. A place accommodating such desperate characters that even the police thought it wise to avoid being seen in its vicinity. This was where he summoned her for each meeting, an act she was increasingly convinced was a twisted act of passive aggression. She sat quietly in front of him, watching him carefully, anxious to leave. Amadi, despite the monies he got from her, firmly remained a simple man. Two beat-up upholsteries stood on either side of a termite reading center table. The chairs appeared buried in depths of dust which had undoubtedly built up over the years. The table was completely overrun by scattered bottles of gin, a variety of brands, many of which she had supplied in previous months. Scared of bed bugs or some other insects or infections, she chose the only other piece of furniture in the living room, a low wooden stool near the front door. By now, she knew exactly how he would start each meeting. She knew the many expressions on his dissipated face, his sunken chin, and the predominant scowl which formed on the right side of his mouth. It was this scowl, this testament of his great malevolence, that always worried her. Each time she met him, she had visions of him suddenly leaping over the table and the bottles of gin and snapping her neck. This was not an irrational fear. It would be so easy to dispose of a body in this sordid part of town. The house opened into a back door, which stood over the creek that served as the community refuse dump and toilet. No one would think twice about her decaying body. Hell, the whole place was saturated with the constant smell of rot. The thought, or more likely, the stench, always made her shiver. "How do you like my new life?" he asked suddenly. He always asked that as an opener. She smiled wryly and tilted her head to the side, trying to place her nose away from the smell of alcohol and decay. Her bum shifted uneasily on the aging stool, which she had only managed to sit on after placing a silk handkerchief on it. "It is a shame," she always replied. "Too bad you don't want to leave." It's more that I cannot leave. Thanks to you and your damn gold digging." "I have always given you more than enough money to..." He always interrupted her at this point. "Money!" He would always cry self-righteously. "No money will ever be enough. You have all you have because of him. And now he is dead because of you. You killed my brother. And I have the proof." "I will tell the whole world." But he never did. And he won't, because then a clause in his brother's will meant that every property would be handed to charity in the likely event of foul play in his demise. Also, the life insurance she inherited as a result of his death became void. If she lost his brother's wealth, then he also lost someone to support his alcoholism and what was left of his life. It was in neither of their interest for the truth to come out. He knew all these things as well as she did. But perhaps it felt good to threaten. It was always the same every time. She would place the gin, which he always demanded she came with, in front of him, like a priest about to appease her gods. He had a preference for Chelsea dry gin and Smirnoff vodka, which had only increased over the years. With the gin appropriately deposited, he would accuse her, threaten her, and demand money. But now, it was such a stale drama she would have yawned if she was not so afraid of taking in copious amounts of the nauseating air. She placed the vodka bottle on the edge of the table closest to him, then sat back and watched him carefully. The shadows grew slowly on his face as night fell. A local lamp, the only source of light, hung behind him and blew dark smoke over his head, giving him the appearance of Hades. And in that instant, she understood what she feared the most about his scowl. It told her that one day money would not be enough for him, but revenge will. And who knows in what form that revenge will come? "Tell me, Amadi, what do you want?" she asked as calmly as possible. "I want to get out of here," he said, smacking the table violently. It wobbled, and the gin bottles on the table clinked against each other in protest. The newly placed bottle fell off the table, destined to smash into pieces on the floor. With surprising alacrity, Amadi dove and effected a heroic rescue of the bottle and its precious contents. I want a business in a good part of town, away from all this stench, he said, returning to his seat. He held the bottle in his hand, clearly unwilling to trust the table again. We have done that before, she said coldly. The money always ends up in one place. She indicated the bottle as she said so. As if he had been reminded of an important task, he unscrewed the cap and quickly downed a great draught of vodka. His greed nearly choked him, but he cleared his throat bravely. This time will be different, he promised when he had recovered. It will, she said. By the time this meeting is over, you will never bother me again. He looked at her curiously for a second. Then it hit him. The drink. He gave the dear bottle a betrayed look as he slumped to the ground, whispering, This was how you killed my brother. She waited and watched as he struggled and convulsed and eventually grew still. She tried to calm her nerves. Her heart pounded furiously against her chest, but she tried not to feel jittery or squeamish. She reminded herself over and over again that this was not the first time she had done this. Despite her nerves, she was not too worried. It would be so easy to dispose of a body in this sordid part of town. The house opened into a back door which stood over the creek that served as the community dump and toilet. No one would think twice about his decaying body. Hell, the place was saturated with the constant smell of rot. Charles Kadib is a freelance and fiction writer who resides in Port Harcourt. He's an avid reader who enjoys stories anywhere they are found, especially in movies and music. You can read more of his work on Naira Pen and connect with him on X at Charles_Kadib. Details and links will be in the episode description. If you've got a story you would like to be featured on this podcast, or a published book you want to make into an audiobook, send an email to info@osadumebi.com or send me a message at osadumebi on either Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or X. I look forward to collaborating with you. And if you've enjoyed this week's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell someone, everyone, that stories are a good escape for a few minutes each week.